This video is sponsored by UGREEN. I have had the MacBook Neo, the MacBook Air M5, and the MacBook Pro M5 on my desk for the last 3 weeks. These are not quick review units I've used just for a weekend. I've been working on all three every day and actually doing work. Now, yes, I know that I'm later on this, and that's kind of on purpose. Because, well, you've probably already watched the spec breakdowns if you want to. You've watched the first experience reviews, so I'm not going to do that. Today, I want to share a more considered, intentional perspective on what I think happens when you use each of these. What I've learned about the lineup, and from experience, and other creators over the last week that have shared with me, I'm going to share some perspectives on which one I'm reaching for, which one keeps surprising me, and the one that I would be buying in 2026 if I'd known this earlier. And then, well, I've got a bit of a curveball Mac setup suggestion for you, built around a very different way of working that is now taking over my life on Mac. It's the most indispensable Mac app, which is changing how I think about my computer. But before we get started, just double check for me if you're actually subscribed below, because it's easy to think you are, because YouTube's just serving you my videos anyway. It would be great if you stuck around. So, the MacBook Neo. $599. I'll be honest, when Apple announced this, it was possible it was going to be a Chromebook competitor that felt underwhelming for a lifetime Mac user like me. Give it to your kid and they'll enjoy it type machine. I was completely wrong. And since it came out, to be honest, the consensus is pretty remarkable. Almost nobody is saying the Neo is bad from any respected tech reviewers. And to be honest, this thing is mostly what I talked about in terms of products at Apple's 50th party with other tech YouTubers. Now, I threw actual work at this. Pixelmator Pro editing with on-device AI processing, Notion, Slack, Claude, Final Cut Pro with 4K editing, project playback, a Chrome browser doing its best impression of a RAM buffet on like 15, 20 tabs all at once, and it handled it all without stuttering on an iPhone chip. Now, other creators have proved this too. Tyler Stallman, photographer, videographer, someone who actually knows a professional workflow and what that looks like, put this thing through 4K video editing in Final Cut Pro with every other app running. And his reaction, it's totally fine and pretty darn quick. He kept trying to break it and it took ages before it even started to struggle. Patrick Tommaso did exactly the same, pushing the Neo through proper 4K editing workflows and got surprising usable results. So that's three of us all finding that these things are way better than you should expect. Not good for the price, actually usable. Now, look, the Neo has 8 gigs of RAM, and for a lot of people, that's sacrilege in 2026. And it's a phone chip. On paper, yes, it shouldn't be doing any of this, but it is. And that raises a big question. How many of us bought MacBook Pros because we thought we needed them, when something at half the price would have done the job? Now, I'm not saying the Neo can do what a MacBook Pro can do, but I am including myself in that question. I've had an M1 MacBook Pro with the Max chip for nearly 6 years. It cost $3,600 or UK pounds and was probably overkill when I bought it. But then again, with that said, you could equally argue that that's exactly why it lasted this long. I bought more machine than I needed, and then time caught up to the headroom. So maybe overkill isn't always a bad strategy, but the Neo is proving that for a lot of people, the overkill they bought wasn't headroom. It was just money that most didn't need to spend. So yeah, the Neo handles far more than anyone expected. But where I think it gets interesting is that the laptop I keep reaching for isn't the Neo. Although this is incredibly chuckable, light, tiny. I'll say very quickly, the keycaps, the keyboard is as good as any I've used on Mac, tone-matched keyboard, a proper clickable trackpad. I actually quite like it and have missed it. And yeah, maybe the screen looks a little older than a lot of modern laptops, but all aluminium, really solid, same number of ports as you get on the MacBook Air. And for most people, if you write, if you work, you do the odd bit of photo editing, it's hard to beat this, it really is. But it is raising a question. Whilst this is lovely and it's really nice to see some proper colorways, I'll be honest, this is really cool, but I probably would just go with silver, but it's gonna be great for a lot of people. You can lob it in your bag and not worry about it. And the laptop I actually keep reaching for out of all three of these, the MacBook Air. And I can't quite explain why. Oh yeah, and we have to also discuss Neo versus iPad later before you go. I'm reaching for the MacBook Air M5. It's supposed to be the one for most people, right? Apple have said it, lots of reviewers have said it, and well, I've said it. And yet I'm sitting here struggling to explain exactly what the Air is now that the Neo exists. Now, on paper, the Air is kind of in trouble. The Neo costs $500 less and handles everyday work just as well. The Pro has the ports and the brilliant screen and the sustained performance with basically fans, right? But a lot more connectivity and of course all that power. But the Air is stuck in the middle, more expensive than the thing below it and less capable than the thing above it. 9to5Mac ran a piece last week asking the obvious question: if you previously bought a MacBook Air and you don't need 16GB of RAM for heavier multitasking, why wouldn't you buy the MacBook Neo right now? And they're already writing about what the Air needs to justify its existence. It would be great if this had an OLED screen, better thermals, maybe some bolder design. The Air is having a bit of an identity crisis, and yet I just keep picking it up. Every morning when I sit down to work, I just keep reaching for this. Not the Neo and not the Pro, the Air. Now, am I just a sucker for sexy design and aesthetics? Or am I actually right to choose it? Let me know in the comments where you stand, because I think I keep reaching for this, because the Air is what happens when Apple gets the balance exactly right. It's fast enough for everything I actually do. Occasional multi-stream 4K editing, AI tools, a dozen apps running smoothly. It's light enough to throw in a bag without thinking about it. It runs completely silently. The battery lasts all day. An M5 chip in this now will handle future AI demands no problem. And it starts with 16 gigs of RAM with 512GB of storage, which means I'm never managing compromises the way I would be on the Neo for occasional power use cases. Yeah, the Air does not have a killer feature. There's just nothing to complain about. And in practice, that really matters. If you do one thing with your Mac that regularly pushes it, video editing, running local AI models, the Air gives you headroom the Neo doesn't. And if you never push your machine like that, the Neo saves you £500 or $500. That, I think, is the honest framework. Okay, so the Air earns its place in practice, even if it's squeezed on paper. But next we need to discuss this beast, the Pro, and I have a take that might save you some money. First though, something that every MacBook I've owned have in common is that the storage fills up fast when you're working with video or large files, and upgrading internal storage at the point of purchase is ridiculously expensive. That Apple ladder does annoy me. And I've been setting up my own personal cloud with today's sponsor UGREEN and the NAS DH4300 Plus, because a NAS, network attached storage, is a brilliant solution and less technical than you think using this kind of thing. Because yes, SSDs are fast and external drives work, but you're constantly plugging things in, ejecting them, moving them around. UGREEN's NAS series really does remove that for the everyday user. It's simple to set up, you'll walk through every step to get up and running, but the real benefit is how seamless it makes the workflow. It's an easy to access remote interface where you can get to your files on any device, and storage scales to 120 terabytes. You can use it to store family photos, watch films, or use it for work. And the UGREEN DH4300 Plus series is available right now. It is my best recommendation of an accessible NAS if you want to get serious about your storage and stop paying for cloud subscriptions. The MacBook Pro M5 is the most powerful laptop Apple have ever built. And I've been saying this for years. I don't think the Pro is ultimately about power when you realise how powerful the top spec Air is. Not for most people. You see, I think the real reason that most people buy a Pro is threefold. One, the display. Liquid Retina XDR with proper HDR, which matters if you work with colour. Two, the ports. You've got an HDMI, an SSD card, multiple Thunderbolt 5 connectors, no dongles. If you plug into screens, projectors, cameras regularly, nothing else in the lineup does that. And right now, my old M1 Max is plugged into 3 hard drives and an SSD, doing work for me. And that M1 Max is nearly 6 years old and still handles everything I throw at it. I overinvested in 2021 and got the 6 years of zero compromise performance. But well, this is the same chassis from 2021. Same notch, same form factor, same weight. And the M6 Pro is rumoured for later this year with a full redesign. OLED, touchscreen, dynamic island. That's not a spec bump, that's the start of a new generation, which is exactly when I bought my M1, and that was a very good move. So following my framework, if you're on an M3 or M4 Pro and things are running fine, wait. And if you're on an Intel Mac or an early M1 hitting genuine bottlenecks, well, that might be a reason to buy right now because, well, no rumour is worth the loss of productivity. And well, wow, this thing is unbelievably fast. I found this to be much, much swifter at a lot of jobs. I genuinely don't have the time or the technical skill to make the most out of this. So other than the ports and the screen, therefore, it doesn't really have a lot of reason for me to own it above the Air. And that's why we need to talk about my curveball in a little bit. Oh, and while we talk about ports, this is a really good illustration. The Neo has a USB-C 3 and USB-C 2 charging as well. The Air, you get MagSafe, freeing up another port, and you're gonna get a lot faster speeds on those Thunderbolt ports. And then the Pro, well, we have all of that, plus round the other side, we've got HDMI, another Thunderbolt port, and SSD. So those are the three MacBooks, and I've spec'd these in the description for the version of each that I'd recommend someone buys if you want to see them below. But there's one angle I haven't seen many people talk about, and it might be the most important one regarding this little beauty. Here's something that clicked for me after a couple of weeks with the Neo. I used an iPad Pro that looked a bit like this Air back from 2018 as my main computer for 2 years with a Magic keyboard. Well, not even that, just a folio. It worked mostly, I think, QLab when I was running theatre productions was the only thing I couldn't run on it. But I was always fighting iPadOS to do laptop things, file management, multitasking, constant compromise. Now, here's the maths that should make Apple nervous. A 13-inch iPad Air with a Magic keyboard, 256 gigabytes of storage, costs around £1,200. The MacBook Neo costs $500. Double the price for what you could argue is a worse laptop experience. Okay, admittedly, there's a load of other cool stuff that you can do. Ben Lovejoy at 9to5Mac made this argument, and I think he's right. The Neo doesn't cannibalize MacBook Air sales, it cannibalizes iPad sales. Anyone buying an iPad as a laptop replacement now has a better option at half the price. Well, probably, until you learn how to use this with the right setup, and I've got a video on that, you should watch it. But the iPad is still by far the best tablet. For drawing, reading, certain creative workflows, nothing beats it. But iPad as a laptop replacement, the Neo definitely killed that pitch, even though iOS 26 gives us proper windowing and menus. So that's the Neo, the Air, the Pro, and the iPad question. Here's the curveball setup I'd actually build if I was starting from scratch right now, and to be honest, I might still just do it. So here's that curveball I promised you. How I'm using Mac in the last 2 months has completely changed. I would say I am doing 40% of my work now through one app. And that app is Claude. Claude Cowork and Claude Code on the desktop interface, to be precise. They're fast becoming my most used Mac app. They are starting to run around the clock, scheduled tasks, automated workflows, things keep ticking away while I'm sleeping. I can message an always-on computer from my phone, and Claude will work on it safely. Yeah, more on the channel soon. You need to get subscribed and go and check out my other second channel, Systems Made Better, for more on agentic workflows, because it's getting completely wild. So if you want to copy me and have a very viable AI agentic assistant that's actually very easy to set up, or if maybe you run a business where you need more than one person using a machine, the following could be a low-key inspired setup choice. A Mac Mini as your always-on desktop computer, and a MacBook Neo as your grab-and-go portable device. The Neo will even drive an Apple Studio display, a $599 laptop pushing a 27-inch 5K XDR Pro display if you want it. And so, well, I'm very close to hitting the buy button on the following. A Mac Mini M4 Pro at $1,399, a MacBook Neo in silver at $599, and a studio display for $1,500. That's under £3,500 for a properly powerful always-on desktop, a very capable portable laptop, and a 27-inch 5K screen beautifully designed by Apple. Remember what I paid for my M1 Max MacBook Pro? That was $3,600 for 32 gigabytes of RAM, I think, and a terabyte of storage. one machine. And yes, well, I know, probably for most people, the smarter move is the single cable life. A single cable desktop setup. One laptop, one cable, plug it into your desk in clamshell, screen, keyboard, charging everything, unplug and walk away with the same machine. I'm deep into building that setup right now for 2026, a premium and affordable version, and that's gonna be in my next video, so get subscribed to not miss it. As for me, well, I have to send most of these back, but, well, I might see if I can keep hold of this for a little while. Now, if you're interested in that Studio Display XDR, I've got a full unboxing and test review right here, and that's the Claude co-work video that will get you ahead of most users in a morning. You need to see that. Drop me a like if this gave you a bit of a different perspective, and I'll see you on the next one.